Hello all and welcome to Tuesday Q&A. I'm your host Roland. With me today, my expert Ursinity. Ursinity, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Ah, boy, fantastic.
Good. Today we have the unveiling of the happiest man alive, a yes man you would say, a man that may or may not do drugs to maintain his happiness, someone who the community loves, and if you don't, fuck you, I guess. Lyrical, how are you? You're a gangster, lyrical Dota. I love you.
Geez.
I've watched you from your inception. Please, I'm not going to treat you like a human. I'm going to treat you like an idol. You're on a pedestal 10 feet high. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. You guys are awesome too. We were talking about before the show, and I'll repeat it here for the audio version as well, that I really like what you guys do, because as somebody who's tried to produce content before, it's not easy to make it consistent and high quality. And I'm really impressed that you guys have been able to do this for so long. I really like it.
Two biggest
I'm
compliments.
very happy to be here.
Two biggest compliments we've ever received. We are very happy to have you here. The initial recording that we were going to do with you, which was going to be audio only, was the night my son was born. So, hey, such a happy disposition that you birthed my child with your vibes. How does that make you feel? I love my child. It brings me
honored?
great joy. I named him.
I'm glad that you clarified that.
I named him.
Maybe slightly afraid of my own power.
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised, dude. When you're on bath salts, you can do anything you want to do. So today we are going to be doing a Tuesday Q&A, as per usual. Once I would like to say Happy Martin Luther King Day. This is a great day.
Yeah.
This is a day that means a lot to me. So happy MLK Day, guys. Come on, Ursi. Why are you over there? I said Happy MLK Day
funny.
to people. Why can't you say I say Merry Christmas? I can say Happy MLK Day.
Because
This day is
it's Martin Luther King Jr., first of all, and you're like making special, like, it's such a special day for me. But like,
it's a special
judging
day
by the
for
monitor,
everyone. Okay.
I agree with you. I'm just
God.
saying.
Yeah.
It was a surprising comment.
Sorry, Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I was just saying, it's a great day. It says Tuesday Q&A, but recording this on Monday. Whatever.
Sorry. I
God.
Does this
work
mean that
today, so I'm a
Ursinity
little-
doesn't like Martin Luther King Jr.? Is
Yeah,
that what that means?
I think that's
No,
what that
I'm a big
means.
fan.
And he's trying to like point it at me. I'm sorry that I'm happy about that, but okay, we'll continue on.
Oh, I'm happy too. I didn't get the day off though, so like,
So
is it really a holiday?
You need
I
a
don't
day
know.
off? Is that what you need?
I don't need a day off, but everybody else had a day off, so like, I didn't get one.
This is what I do. This is this is like I only have days off, I guess, except for now. It's on. The mic's on, so we're going. So for any new listeners, new people here, Tuesday Q&A is a show where I am the noob, Ursi is the expert, and we answer questions about Dota 2. People call in, people write in, and Ursi drones on and on and on and on and on about the right thing to do, and I usually interject with sub 4K knowledge. With that being said, we need to identify...
Occasionally sub 3K knowledge or sub 2K knowledge.
Not
depending
anymore.
on the comment.
Not anymore. 3.5K sitting right here in this brown chair.
Congrats.
Oh.
Hey, what... Yeah, that reminds me. Let's do a quick state of affairs. Lyrical, what's your MMR?
My MMR, it's actually pretty garbage right now. I think I'm sitting around the 3.2K mark. I got up to around the 3.5, 3.7, and then I decided that I wasn't really having as much fun anymore. It's weird. As a caster, you unless you want to become an analyst, you really don't need to have that high MMR. You need to be able to understand what's happening in the games, but pubs are just so far different from what's happening in pros that really it's more about like getting a feel for the heroes. So I random every game pretty much exclusively.
Oh my
and I
God.
usually first pick random, and I'm at 3.2 with that.
A man after my fucking heart. I knew I liked him. Okay. Ursinity, let's talk about a story when this podcast was first starting, okay? Let's get into a little story. Let's go back in time. So DotP started out, and we were getting some good reviews, some 5-star reviews here and there on iTunes, until this little missionary bastard comes along and leaves us a 4-star review because why, Arsenity? Why did I get a 4-star review?
Because Roland used to random every game. Roland used to random every game in ranks.
Most specifically?
And I was like, boy, this...
What did you say exactly?
Oh, I said this would have been a 5-star review, except this is to teach a lesson or whatever to Roland. And so my own podcast, I have now reviewed at 4 stars, and I can't change the rating.
Yep.
So
for randoming and
life
ranked.
is full of struggle.
So Lyrical.
Yeah, I mean, you deserved it, honestly.
So does Lyrical deserve a 4-star review? Are you going to say that to him live on air?
Podcast.
Hey, he does content creation.
All right. Yeah, but he has a solid line of reasoning behind his thing, right? Like, his thing is like, and it makes sense, right? It's sound logic. Like, I'm going to cast all the heroes, so I should random every game. Then, you get a feel for a lot of things. But, like, you're not a caster. You're just a guy with a podcast.
I could be.
So
if I wanted to put in a... No, I really couldn't be.
You really couldn't. I mean,
my memory,
no, sure.
Yeah, it's like a goldfish. Yeah, it's a goldfish. Lyrical, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Dude, you know what we could do?
Yes.
We could group up because we're similar skill. You could random, and then I could random, and we definitely be like, dude, I'm so good at that hero, and you'd be like, I'm so good at that hero, and we could switch and have 725 gold each.
I like that.
Yeah.
And the bonus gold means we can't lose.
No, if you start out with more gold, you win. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've heard LD, all the best analysts. I don't know, LD isn't an analyst, but Purge says if you random and it's a hero you're good at, you win 72% of the time. You can quote me on that. That's just...
I ran him 2 games before this, and I won both of them. So
what'd you play?
Infinite correlation there.
What'd you play?
I played an Oracle and a Rubik.
Damn, not easy heroes.
We won both of them.
They're
2 of my favorites, actually. I spammed Oracle when it first came out just to learn him because, you got to do that with each of the new heroes pretty much. And I just felt like this super good connection with them. I feel like, because it's, again, one of those heroes where you have the ability to outplay somebody. Like, you can Q to, take off and purge things, Ws for both the disarm as well as saving people. It's like, it feel like it clicks.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan. I used to play him a lot too, especially when he was like at first launch. He was like legitimately overpowered.
Oh yeah.
Now he kind of sucks, but like he was really good for a long while there. Boy, Oracle Huskar back in the day. Oh god.
Oh man.
That's the dream.
I am just. I liked you already. I didn't really know you, but Lyrical, like. Where do you live, man? Like, do you live close? You want to like get a drink together or something like that? And talk about Dota and talk about the struggle.
Go on a couple dates. Oh, good. I live in Oregon, west coast of the U.S. It's pretty far away though. It's really snowy right now, so it'd be tough to get out.
I live in Utah, which is close to Oregon.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, we'll stop with this.
That's actually pretty close.
It is pretty close. I love Oregon. It's a beautiful place. Ursi lives in the garbage half of the United States. Literally garbage flowing everywhere in New York City. Hate it there.
Yeah, I don't live in New York City for the record.
Wow, you live close enough.
the only one that says that. I'm getting a reputation as a fraud because Roland's claiming that I'm from the city. When I say I'm not from the city, every time people insinuate that.
Okay,
it's something.
Oh.
It's time to crack down.
I live close to the city though.
Crack down and take our first caller. We are going to take our first caller. Denny's already got it set up. By the way, shout out to Cyphus. He produces this whole show. He makes it run smoothly. Cyphus even gave Lyrical a back rub before this started, make sure Lyrical was nice and loose, keeping that disposition. I like him. He's my best friend in the whole world. I hope you know that. Okay.
This is getting weird.
We'll stop there. Yeah, we'll stop there. All right. So our first caller is Soho Ski Racer. His MMR is 2,750. Soho, what's your question, my friend?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. Many heroes have 3 of their main abilities that one of them is an aura or something you don't really max earlier or intend to use. What sort of heuristic or EV structure do you have for deciding when those are value points? Because it seems like most of the time it's really, really tempting to just get 1 point of something at the very least. Like on Venge, you either want to max her aura or her Wave of Terror, and it's tempting to get a value point of the other, or on Lich, getting Frost Armor, Jug, Crit, Rubik, Aura, etc., etc. How do you guys sort of look at that decision?
Lyrical, right. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Ursinity, we have a special guest.
Oh, no, that's fair. The pros do a lot of value pointing, too. That's fair.
What was that now? I didn't catch the last bit of that.
So he's asked...
When you put value points, basically.
Value points.
Sorry.
So for me, the big one, and it's a hero that I was just playing recently again, was Rubik. And so no field there, a lot of value early on, but it's all about like the change on the marginal gains that you get from each additional point. So if you take a look at Rubik, for instance, and his no field, I can't remember exactly how much it goes up by. It's like
10, 14, 18, 22.
Right. So 10, 14. So that's a 4% increase in your gain of magic resistance to your whole team. Then you compare that to Fade Bolt, which is one of the things that, depending upon the build, again, you're probably going to be maxing early. In that, the damage goes up pretty quickly, and also it's something where you're able to get more value out of it by like throwing it down a lane, continuing to push things out because it's going to lower the damage of the creeps and all that shenanigans. So to me, I think you have to consider the marginal gain you're going to get from each additional point in terms of like raw damage. Raw damage is better early because it's something where it's a larger proportion of your enemy's total HP pool. And then the other big thing is, what is the game like that you're in? Because pro games are going to have a completely different value point than others. Like in some games, it might not even be worth it to get one of those really high value passives because maybe you don't believe in your team enough, or maybe you don't, like if you're one of the high MMR people in the game, versus if you're playing and you're the low MMR, it could be worth it just to like max out that CM aura first, because you know that you're not going to be able to make the same type of plays that other people would. So it's sort of like a buy feel thing, but generally I would say go for more damage early and then like hit the value points on things that help your whole team. Usually like before 6, you would want to be able to get those for most of them. There's obviously differences, but
yeah. I definitely agree. I think Rubik's the best example for sure of a value point,
and
right?
This is with like, no field.
Just like you said.
I just want to. I don't play. I don't play Rubik. I know that the guy like he gives people spells and he lifts people, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he steals spells. He doesn't give people spells,
but he steals them and gives them to them.
Potentially, or he steals them and gives them to his allies. You never know.
I understand, Rubik. So, would you ever get one in Fade Bolt and max Nullfield?
No. So it's just like Lyrical said, right? It's about like non-linear growth, right? So when you look at Fade Bolt, it's 10% at level 1 that it gives you, but then at level 2, it's only giving you 4% difference, right? Because it goes 10, 14, 18, 22. I'm quite certain that's the scaling. So the first point is like in a very literal sense, right? You're getting 10 percentage points of value, and then after that you're only getting 4 percentage points of value, but you're still investing an entire skill level's worth of points, right? So that is easily the best example, I think, of it's just an ability that doesn't grow linearly, right? When we look at like Sniper's Headshot, right, it grows linearly because level 1 it's 15 damage, level 2 it's 40, then it's 65, and then it's 90, I think. And so it's plus 25 damage per level, right? So it has a very linear, like, all right, you're getting X amount, and then each point invested is 25 more damage. So things that grow linearly make a lot more sense to just put points in, whereas things that are non-linear, it's like you get a ton of value for this first point, but then the second point you're getting significantly less value for that full point, right? Because each point is effectively the same value if you could put it somewhere else, or vice versa.
Just to clarify, there's a lot of people that are just hitting me up asking what linearly means. What does that mean?
In a line.
Oh, yeah. See, it means in a line, guys. Okay. Good question. In it, like this, like a wave.
Well, think like a ladder, right? Like something that grows like linearly, right? If something that grows linear like a ladder. I'm just really excited to use this metaphor because I make tons of bad metaphors.
I bet this sounds good.
Something that grows like a ladder, right? Like Nullfield would be a ladder where the first rung is like really inaccessible, and then the next rung is like super close, and then super close, and then super close, right? So it's not like an even amount of space in between. Whereas something like Headshot is like, all right, the first one's accessible, and then it's like it's the exact same like space in between each progressive rung.
Like 4, 8, 12.
There we go. Instead
of 10, 14, 18.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I think that you could also just change Rubik's abilities a little bit to show that, like, if it was 4, 8, 12, 16, then it would no longer be a value point as much so, because each individual level, like the first level would only get you 4%, each subsequent level would give you 4%, versus the first level giving you 10%. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for a value point, I think.
Okay, and I think Rubik is a good example.
Yeah, there's other little things like situational value points, where like if somebody has a Lincoln sphere like super early and you're on a support, and like normally I'm trying to think of a good example of a support like this. None's coming to mind off the top of my head. But
Bane.
Well, Bane. Oh, see, I'm on the Enfeeble train. I think Enfeeble's like a god tier ability. Let's say like Nyx, right? So some Nyx builds, if you're countering a Bat Rider with a Nyx, oftentimes they're just going to max Spike Carapace second. But if for some reason you want to have a point in mana burn, that becomes a value point because 1 point mana burn is quite good. And so there are certain situational value points, but I do think in general, that's actually a good example of value point now that I look at it, because the int modifier for mana burn is 3.5 at the first level, but then at the second level it's only 4. Then like the big value comes in that the cooldown's lower, but there are some like situational value points of being like, okay, well normally I wouldn't pick this up, but because of a certain specific enemy hero, then I'm gonna pick up this this debuff or this point.
Cool. Soho, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that got largely to the heart of it. I'm actually, I think, on the opposite side of the train in that I get them far too frequently and all the time because the marginal utility seems so great. I'm bad at estimating the threshold that getting to that level 4 and that other ability sooner really means. But that really did give some great heuristics for those heroes, especially the Rubik example.
Yeah. One big thing to think about when you're getting value points is if you have the mana to support them. So like using the Nyx example going further, if you are laning as Nyx, oftentimes you're not going to have enough mana to just be using mana burns, right? So it's not a lot of value there to have like 1/1/1 at level 3, right? Because you only have like 300 points of mana pool, right? So if you're investing all this mana into mana burn, then like you're not getting that many gains out of it, and vice versa. If you have invested the point, that means the abilities you're actually going to be using are worse, right? So there is a time and a place for value points, and certain heroes can pull it off, others can't.
Well, thank you so much for your question. Okay. That was interesting. So this is going to make me start looking at skills more. For instance, another show host of ours, Proud, talks about getting 2 levels in Sven's Stormhammer. And that is not linear, because it's like 100, then 180, and then... So basically it starts out as like, 150, and then it adds 80 or something like that. I think you're looking it up right now, Ursi.
Yeah, you can probably see it through my glasses in the reflection. It's 100 damage at level 1, then 175 at level 2.
So,
right, so the first point
is better than the second point in gap or in differential.
Yeah, in terms of differential initial damage, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that is something to think about. I think that is kind of already covered if you use the Tortellini guides. I think he kind of covers that in there, doesn't he?
I have no clue.
What, is there a ghost behind you?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, our next caller.
No, I don't know. I just heard a weird sound. I might die.
Yeah. Well, if you did, it would be like
you had
gold.
A good run.
We'd definitely make it to top of our Dota. Okay, so this next question comes for Lyrical himself. It's from Grouty. His MMR is 3,500. Grouty, what's your question?
Hey guys, nice to meet you, Mr. Lyrical. I really enjoy your casting. I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks, man.
But, I've got a few questions, if that's okay, Mr. Roland.
No.
Do I get called? Do I get called Mr. Ursinity? You're probably not.
No, you don't get called Mr. Ursinity.
Wow, I'm not the boss. All right, yeah, you can ask as many as you want. You can ask as many as you want.
So my first question, Lyrical, is who's your favorite co-caster?
Oh lordy, that is a loaded question and a half.
Yeah, really.
Yep.
But I don't know if I really do have a favorite co-caster. I'm going to cop out and be that answer. It really also depends a lot upon like what the game is as well, because there are certain analysts that have a little bit more like capital within the community where they're not going to be questioned as much. So like, for instance, Moppax is one of my favorite people to cast with in the world. Like I love casting with him. He's a really funny guy. I feel like we have good chemistry, but there are times where like people will sort of go after him and stuff, and that just sucks in general. If like, you know, he doesn't say, if he says something that's a little bit off base, and I think generally people don't care about that, but it's something to sort of consider. And like, I got to cast with him at Atlanta WESG Dubai, and I think that he was like probably one of my favorite people to cast with. But I also really like casting with other people that, for instance, Gods and Merlini, I got to cast with them in the past. But the opportunities to do that are a little bit less, so then the chemistry isn't there as much. So Moppax would be definitely like top 2. There are many people I like casting with more than him.
Yeah, I like Moppax a lot, or Trent Pax.
Yeah,
oh God.
I was gonna
Trent
say
Pax, yeah.
All the renaming gets confusing.
It was a rebrand. I think it had to do with Mott, right? Mott being Mott, and then you know, also get your first name in there. Could be like Joshland is what I could be. I think I might do that rebrand, but I'll wait till 2018. Samsinity, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, boy. That just rolls off the tongue.
All right.
Gabical.
All right, Grumbo, what else you got for us?
All right. Second question, like first one's for you, second one's for me. I do a lot of casting for our in-house league. I'm not exactly like an aspiring caster or anything, but I often end up doing the play-by-play, and I feel like I have some problems bringing the hype. Do you have any suggestions for how to improve that?
Yeah, that is something that I struggled with a lot as well. And it's something that is sort of tough, because my biggest thing when I started casting, I was doing in-house leagues also, was the fear that I wasn't going to sound genuine. And like when I'm casting for myself, at least, I really want to make sure that I'm not being phony and I'm not like trying to say something that's not real. And if I know the game is going to end pretty soon and it's like, well, Naga Siren is there, she's got a 6 slot and there's no outer towers taken for the enemy team, it's like this game is going to be over. And so I would say the biggest thing is to allow yourself to be ignorant. Allow yourself to sometimes like give yourself that don't break your suspension of disbelief. I guess that's like a movie term, but the idea of allowing yourself to go to the furthest extreme of, can this happen? And so you build up this narrative of what is it that they would have to do, and you talk excitedly about what it is that they would need to do to be able to come back into this game, and then you like try and hit that as hard as you can. And also just in general, raising the level of your voice. That's probably the easiest one, is raise the level of your voice when you're casting.
Can we have an example?
Because an example of what?
Of like you like, okay, so game just started, we're about 5 minutes in and there's a first blood about to happen.
Okay, so there's a first blood that's about to happen.
You see it coming.
There's a Rubik and a Luna that are up in the top lane. Okay. There's a Nyx assassin that's there. You know, he's trying to mind his own business, and he goes in, he pops Spike Carapace accidentally instead of Impale. Oh my goodness, Nyx assassin ended up popping Spike Carapace and now wrapping around Rubik, Luna. They're going to be able to engage on him, and no Impale. The Impale misses. Quick kill, and first blood goes to Team Solo. I don't know.
Dude, you just blew me away, because you did like a crescendo, and then you go, and then it doesn't look like it's gonna work, and it perfectly wraps your narrative, I guess, your mini narrative that you're trying to tell. What do you think?
Yeah, you have to build the storyline.
That's good. So
you think it's?
Go ahead. Sorry,
it's mostly about like inflection and like how
inflection and
being,
loudness.
Really?
Yeah, which is sort of sad, but that is what it comes down to in some ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right, like it's a lot easier to like make it sound emotional, and it's a lot easier to imply inflections if you're not like whispering at the bottom of your voice, right?
Yeah, is AMSR casts, are those good?
ASMR.
What is that?
Grady, you're so lucky. I was like, there's so many easy times to jab at you. Like he said, ignorance and disbelief. Yeah, and I was like, boy, Grady has no problem being ignorant.
Yeah, I actually expected to hear that exact sentence from you.
Oh man.
All right.
So
be respectful.
My last question. Or go ahead, Roland.
Oh, I was just gonna ask exactly what you're about to ask, but you can ask it.
All right. My last question. This is kind of like just a fun one. If you were to ever get in a bar fight, and usually the question goes, who in the Dota community would you want to have your back? But I think that's too easy because I think everybody just picks Tao because obvious. Between Red Eye and Nahaz, who would you pick?
Ooh. I would definitely go. I would definitely go with Nahaz.
Me too. I would too.
I was gonna say because he would just talk to them and they'd fall asleep, but that's kind of mean. And I love Nahaz. I love Nahaz, but yeah, he gets fiery. He gets fiery.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
So I think I'd pick Nahaz too, but I'm concerned like maybe Red Eye's been to a bunch of football matches and
yeah, that's what
England.
I was thinking.
Yeah, so like he might know how to get rowdy, you know?
Yeah, he's been around some hooligans, right? Isn't that what they call them?
Yeah, the hooligans, yeah, for sure.
And that was going to be my guess.
I mean, you throw out that accent and you have like an angry tone and you throw in some like bloody hell and like...
Yeah, you're just like, you taking the piss out of me, mate?
Okay, yeah. That was horrible. There's a horrible accent for him, but you know, we can all hear it in our heads. I didn't even try
to go British, sorry.
It's just like this. It's great. I love his accent. All right, Grumby. What else you got? Anything?
That's really all I had. Those are the big ones that I wanted to ask.
Well,
thanks for your time, Lyrical.
Yeah, thank you, Grouty. Interesting questions. You didn't ask me who my favorite co-caster was, but it's definitely Denny.
All right, Roland, who's your favorite co-caster?
Denny would be my favorite co-caster.
Obviously,
because he's the only person to ever co-cast with. All right, we're going to take a Twitch question real quick. This Twitch question comes from the knowledge bank of information that I have right in front of me as I am pulling it up. It's Robin Roll Gaming asks, just wondering what the thoughts on the support Sven was popping up throughout WESG, and with talents diversifying heroes, are there any other heroes that we might see in different roles?
I'll let you take this one first because I need a second to think about it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, so I haven't watched the games in question, but Proud for quite a while. He, I wouldn't say he played it often, but I've seen a not zero amount of support Sven games, and I mean I like to condense things to like their most basic elements, right? And the most basic element of being a support that's good or two of the most big things about being a 4 is that if you have a stun, you're a good hero at level 1, right? If you have a level 1 stun, you're on a roll. Like you're already a god tier hero. B, you're tanky, right? So if you're like an Ogre Magi, but you have more range, and if the game goes late and if you have the heroes to supplement the fact that you have a Sven farming in addition to whatever cores you have, you kind of make that work. So you would just like being a tanky hero with a stun is very effective, right? And nowadays clarities don't fall off, so you could like gank, like let's say you're ganking any lane, let's say mid or safe lane, and then you just pop a clarity, you fall back, you pull a couple camps, you get level 2, level 3, whatever, and then you come back, you gank again, you have full mana because your clarity's not falling off. Also on top of that, right, like if you walking fast is good, armor is good, you can dive towers with a support Sven. You can't do that with a lot of supports, right? That's why we see 4s like Spirit Breaker and Ogre very strong, because it's really nice if you could dive a tower. So I think those are really, to oversimplify it, I'm sure those are two really big things to it. It's just having fun, having a stun, and being tanky.
Yeah, I think that so that's like supports in general, and then I think like specifically for the Sven itself. Again, I didn't see a ton of the games played. I was casting DAC stuff when it was happening, but I did hear about it afterwards. I think that specifically Sven can work really well when you're in a program. I would not recommend it in pubs as much because I think that a large part of the value from it comes from that war cry and getting increased armor to help deal with a team that's going minus armor. So that's where I really see the value of the support Sven coming. And then you can also, later on go for Ags if you have heroes that are like heavy stat builders or something like that. And then as far as the second point, I really like the talent trees. I've talked about this a lot. Weaver to me is one of the favorites. He doesn't change his position as much, just because of the talent trees. It was more the Ags that did that for him. But for me, a hero that I'm still waiting to see if he's able to break out soon is going to be Jakiro. And I'm thinking about him played in a core role at some point in time. He got a couple of really interesting changes to his late game talents, and a couple as well that allow him to get him there with the plus 15 experience gain, but specifically plus 400 attack range on him. And there's a goddamn item named Dragonlance, and he's a dragon. So I'm thinking about this guy, maybe eventually going back for a Deso as well, like one of the ultimate in terms of tower siegers. So I don't know how well it's going to work, but that's one of the things that I'm sort of crossing my fingers we see at some point.
Yeah, I haven't played core Jakiro yet, but I've played a few games of Jakiro recently, and he's really good. I think he's actually risen in the like 5K plus win rates. I think he's like 50% plus right now. I think he's in like the top 15 or something. Like the hero shows promise. I've been seeing a not zero amount of him recently. It's pretty sick.
Good.
I'm not seeing core though. But...
Good for the twin-headed dragon. I love my Jackie boy.
Yeah.
All right, this question comes from...
Maybe if he gets picked, he'll get a revamp.
He gets picked. I see him sometimes.
He's ugly.
He's ugly. Like he needs to get reworked for sure. All right.
No. Well, yeah.
I'm trying to go on to the next question.
I'm sorry. Continue. Let's move along.
God. All right. This question comes from Infographic 12. It says, I've been following you for a very long time, Lyrical. Ever since your start. Can we pause there? What is your start? He doesn't elaborate. Ever since your start. How would somebody follow you from your start?
If they were a part of the in-house league that I started playing in, which was called Die Hard Dota. There's a big Reddit thread about it actually a while ago when it first came out, which was February of the year before last. I started casting February before TI5, and I started playing October before that. So my first patch was 6.82, where Roche originally got his spawn changed as a StarCraft player before that. So it was pretty late, and then I just started like playing, and then I was spamming Storm Spirit and not really liking my life because I felt like I was very upset at the world. And then I ended up joining an in-house league, and I had a lot more fun, and I started casting from there. So that would be my start, is if you were in one of those diehard Dota leagues, or Training Grounds was the one it turned into later.
He didn't mention that. Okay, after your start, I've been following you. Infographic 12. Sorry, I'm catching back up. He says, when you fly out to Los Angeles to cast for BTS, how does your wife feel about it? And who is the most intimidating person you have come across to date? So as a double parter
not
there.
Random people.
Double parter there.
Yeah. When I fly down to BTS, and I do end up, my wife will drop me off at the airport, and we started off a relationship through the first 3 years being more apart than we were together. We did long distance stuff for a while. So in some ways we're used to it, but it does really suck in some ways, particularly because she's got a very intense job that she works at, a retirement community where there's, she's the executive director of it. So there's a lot of people that come to her with complaints and things like that. And so in a lot of ways, I'm one of the strongest parts of her support system, as I should be, since I'm the husband. Mm-hmm. But it's sad. And I do in a lot of ways miss her when I'm there too. And I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without her. There's just no way. It's too much stress and craziness. But we make it work. And, there was a point in time when I was working at a restaurant. I was a chef in a restaurant, and she was just coming back from a trip that we took, and so she didn't have a job. And for about 7 months, I was able to be like the sole breadwinner for us, where we were sort of scraping and trying to make sure that we were able to make rent and stuff. And then after that, it was so that way she didn't have to take a job that was like just babysitting little kids or just, working at McDonald's or something like that. And then she found a job where she could really like dig in and feel a part of it. And now it's sort of reversed, where I started to hate my job. I started to hate being a chef, and that's why I started playing Dota, because I was depressed. And that's just sort of how that works with Dota. And then she allowed me to be able to do this as well. So there's that give and take in any relationship. So that's where it is. And intimidating, probably Grace, who's Blitz's sister.
Yeah. Ooh. Blitz will come up and feel your hair, and then his sister will yell at you about it, or what? How does that work?
I guess she's a really nice person, but she's very, very hardworking.
Oh, okay. It does. So
that is a very nice way to say scary.
Who is Grace? And how does she relate to us as the community? What does she do for the esports scene? Anything, or is it just like a friend thing?
She works for BTS as the person who helps organize flights in, flights out, that style of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And taking care of food and everything else while people are there.
Okay, so she's like their events manager type position.
Exactly.
Booking flights, making sure people get to places. You'd have to be intense with how many people are coming to that house. Like, you over there, food here, get in the car there, here we go. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Thank you, Infographic 12. Our next question comes from Huili. He doesn't have an MMR. He said, I'm interested in this win bias favoring Radiant over Dire. Roland speculated last week on potential geographic differences that may explain the differential win rate. Just wondering if Ursinity or Lyrical had anything to add to this.
I know Gorgon wrote a piece a while ago, and I think there were some map changes since then about this, because there's been a bit of Radiant bias for a while, but now it's like becoming more of a like firmly entrenched bias, whereas before it was like a 1% or whatever. I know Roland brought up, but just to reiterate, the being that the ramps are just more advantageous for the Radiant and it's more defensible, that's one of the big things. Shrine placement is pretty key for both teams. I know in mid nowadays it's pretty equally easy to gank mid for both Radiant and Dire. I know. Anyway, now I wish I had a source for this because I brought it up a couple different times in Discord chat. But there was somebody making some interesting posts about like the psychological aspect of going from the upper right of the map downwards compared to and like how that mentally affects you compared to going from the bottom to the top, right? It's more motivating if you're like going from the bottom to the top, like just because you're trained, right? That's how things go. You start from the bottom. So if you're starting from the top and going down from the bottom as Dire, that's like something that I feel like is something super subliminal and probably is irrelevant, but that's still cool. When I read it, I was like, man, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. And so I think that might be a little bit of it, but honestly, I think it's mostly just like the ramps are a little better, and I don't have like a concrete. There's not like one thing, right? I don't think anybody can point to one thing and say, "Hey, that's why."
Maybe Lyrical can.
I can put it to one thing.
Okay, I would love to hear it.
Okay, please do.
Yeah.
I actually, the only reason I'm saying this is because I have some like pretty strong opinions about it, and I would agree with you that the mentality part of like the going from bottom down to top up is not really important. The only thing that's a little bit there is the mouse movement in particular, where it's easier to move the mouse sort of up and to the right versus pulling it down and to the left. There's more precise movement that goes on there, but that's again very little because you move all over the freaking place regardless. So that's not really super relevant, but it comes back to geography for me. I was looking through a lot of the ways in which players are winning on Radiant versus Dire across levels of play in terms of like in terms of the like difference in win rates across skill levels, and it's a bigger skill gap Radiant advantage for lower MMR players than it is for higher MMR players, and even further so for pros. And I think a big part of the reason for it is because of that geographic differences and the way that you move around the map, that when you're moving around the map as a Radiant team, the way to take down the Dire tier 1 tower in the top lane, it's a lot easier to, like, if you think about the geography around it, there's that low ground that sinks down and there's more wiggle room in there. You don't want to fight from the low ground. Whereas if you take a look at the Radiant side, it's a lot easier to defend. I would say that there's like that large flat plane, particularly along the tier 2 tower on the bottom lane for Radiant, and all of that is open. So you can kind of see if people are trying to sneak up on you or trying to make that movement in there, and battles that take place down there are more easily defendable. So just in general, I think that that's a big part of it is the way that you take control of the enemy jungle. I think it's a lot easier to take control of the dire jungle now with just a couple of wards placed in there. So, and that would make more sense as to why it is that it's a bigger advantage at lower MMR, because then people are just running around like crazy in there. So that's my thought.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes a ton of sense.
Because Dire does definitely not have that in their jungle. It's pretty closed off, tight. I guess you have the, I don't know, you know where the hard camp and the medium camp is, kind of near the bounty rune on the Dire jungle. I guess that would be the equivalent to the Radiant jungle where their bounty rune is. But there's ramps going up and down, which isn't flat land. So I would definitely tend to agree with you. Okay, we have another call in. This question is from Deboot. His MMR is 2600. Deboot, what is your question, sir?
Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just wanted to know, Lyrical, what was the best hamburger you've ever eaten in your life?
I eat a lot of hamburgers. There was one that I had at a place called Barney's in Berkeley that has really freaking good hamburgers, and I used to love it all the time, and it was their blackened burger. So if you guys have ever had blackened spices before that on any type of thing, they made a really good one there. They served it with curly fries and milkshakes. It was great.
Whoa. Did you put curly fries on your burger? Are you one of those people that puts fries on their things, on their sandwiches?
No.
Please
no,
say
I'm
yes.
not. Except for
Please say yes.
gyros. Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, that's the way to have a gyro. That's for sure. I will say my favorite burger, just because I'm gonna make this question about me, is I have a deli, an Irish deli near me that's also a butcher shop, and I get a half-pound burger there with a hash brown on the burger, chili, sautéed onions, mustard, and sriracha on a roll, not like a hamburger bun. Oh man, that's the best.
That's great.
All right, another live caller. Kuma Mizu, MMR 1300. Kuma, what is your question?
Hello, Roland. Hello, Ursi. Hello, Lyrical. My question today is a lot less broad in terms of meta-analysis. Like in the past, it's been pretty open-ended. But this is very opinionated and specific. Would you ever say that Ethereal Blade Centaur is a valid build option? And before you answer, I've come up with the statistical results of a level 25 Centaur with 2 Hearts of Tarrasque and either 15 Strength or 10% Spell Amp, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well,
this is a trap.
Personally, I build.
Okay, go. Sorry, go ahead. This is definitely a trap.
I build a lot of E-Blades. I'll say I'm a big fan of the item. I think in an isolated situation, it will do a lot of damage, right? But unfortunately, Dota is not like an isolated situation type of game, right? So a lot of times, like, you're not going to get to these optimal situations where it's like, okay, I'm playing Ember Spirit and I have exactly these items and I didn't need to build BKB or Lincolns, right? And that kind of doesn't apply anymore because people do this magic damage garbage. But there are a lot of like perfect situation things where, like, yeah, sure, on Centaur you could have 2 hearts and an E-Blade, but then you only have 3 slots left, right? So then how are you going to initiate with this, right? Are you going to have a blink? That's another slot. Then you're 4 slots in. You're going to assume you have boots. That's 5 slots. Then you have like 1 item. And, you know, it's kind of, if you're committing 3 full slots to do a ton of damage with an E-Blade and be tanky, like, you kind of got to get some more stuff out of it, right? You're denying yourself other items in favor of this. That being said, I'm sure it's a ton of damage. So, like, you know, do you, whatever. But I think you could do it with 1 heart, maybe. 2 hearts seems excessive. Reminds me of like the old builds. But I don't know. Honestly, I think it's cool. And I'd be down for like a meme strat where like you go mid, right? You go like treads, veil, blink dagger, heart, E-Blade, heart, something like that maybe. And you just jump around the map killing people. It's interesting. I wouldn't do it, but he's pretty cool. He's got great cosmetics too, so you'll look cool doing it.
Abbott and Evil is interesting too. Okay, what do you have to say, Lyrical?
I'm of the opinion that pretty much anything could be viable, particularly in the pro scene. I think that if you're going to do it in a pub, it's probably going to not go the way that you think it does. But in a pro scene, there's like a reason to itemize for anything, like Blade Mail last minute as last item for Alchemist.
Oh,
1 EG that game.
He was
like,
no one. He truly was no one.
He was no one. So there's that type of thing where it's, last second, maybe it's just that you need a way to stay alive through a Juggernaut Omni Slash, and so you need to be able to E-Blade yourself. And maybe it would have been better if you would have gotten more armor anyways, as opposed to the 2 hearts, but maybe your thought is, I want to deal with it in this fashion. Or maybe it's also just you have that one big bulky hero that needs to be brought down, and you have a ton of magical damage behind you. So I think it's viable. You would need to have it be really a specific situation, though, and I wouldn't advise it in pubs that you desperately need to win. If you want to have fun, though, go for it.
All right, Kuma, let's hear what you have to say about all this. Your turn.
All right, well, I did end up doing it with 2 hearts before, and it was in the last 10 minutes of the game. We were stomping like crazy. Enemy team took about 1 tower, that was it. But calculations in total, with level 25 Centaur, with strength items being 2 hearts, and the strength talent of plus 15 strength, that's a total of 243 strength for an E-Blade Blast of 561 damage, plus the boosted Double Edge and Hoof Stomp. But with the magic talent, it's 228 strength with an E-Blade Blast of 531, but with E-Blade bonus of Double Edge being 427 damage, Hoof Stomp being 267. So honestly, I would go strength because you're dealing extra right-click damage, plus extra health is nice too. But it's just fun to think about it.
It is fun.
The health is going to give you E-Blade damage, right? Or, I mean, if it's a strength-based health.
Yeah.
This is just making me lament that as much as I love Dota Buff and Dota Buff Plus, you cannot search for games in which you bought a specific item. Because I build E-Blade on a lot of heroes I should not be building E-Blade on. Kind of like Armlet that I build on like every hero. But
yeah, I was thinking about that with your Rubik screenshot of 1/118 with Armlet Rubik. I was sort of curious as to watching that game.
That game I had a lot more than Armlet.
All right.
I had HOD Armlet Atos.
Okay, we have more questions for Lyrical.
Okay, all right.
All right. Kuma, thank you as always, and we'll talk to you soon. Next week, my friend. Next week.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, so Lyrical, I'm gonna blast you through some questions because I didn't realize there was a page of questions for you. I'm gonna need you to work fast. I'm gonna need you to change your voice level and your inflection. Okay? Here we go.
Okay. I'm gonna cast it.
Okay. Oh, that'd be great. I know that you're from the Bay Area.
What?
I need to know, in your opinion, which Bay artist bangs the hardest?
Mac Dre, rip in peace.
Love the Dillanoid, a.k.a. the White Junkyard Dog, a.k.a. the Lady's Choice, a.k.a. Mr. DotP Kicks to You Grill. Question from Jay Gushi. What is the origin of your name, and why did you change your name?
My origin of the name was from the hit show on USA, Psych. I don't know if you guys have seen it before, the Pineapple Show.
Yes.
And there's a scene in it where Gus and Sean are going through something, and then Sean's like, what if we get caught? And then, Gus is like, what if we get caught? And Sean says, Gus, I'm a lyrical gangster. If necessary, I'll spit some smooth vernacular and you'll engage them in fisticuffs. And I heard Lyrical Gangster and I loved it, and I changed it because I would never get hired anywhere if I had Lyrical Gangster as my name.
Okay. What specs?
That's a good show.
We're casting this. What specs do you use for casting, and what specs do you recommend for somebody who wants to begin casting?
All right, we'll cast this one you said. Oh my goodness, I've got a wonderful Samsung Q2U microphone that I bought for $50, and it comes with the setup and headphones, and I've got a computer here that is fancy, and I can show you the specs of later.
But the
on
computer's
my channel
breaking. People are ganking the computer. What's happening?
Oh my goodness! Look out! They're ganking the computer. Rubik's wrapping around. Luna's there as well. Eclipse is coming out. They're gonna take them all down. Rampage, double rampage. QO is in dismay. Oh no! That's what I got.
Nice. Okay, what is the most memorable game that you've cast?
It was a game between Newbie and LGD. Noob for You made a video for it. It's on my YouTube channel. It was great. It was the best usage of Lotus Orbs I've ever seen in my entire life. Tinker versus Invoker late game, and every other hero in the game was there to throw Force Staffs and Lotus Orbs at him. It was wonderful.
I bet that was a beautiful game. And where can we find your YouTube channel real quick, so people, while they're on this wavelength, can go watch that? What is it?
I think it's youtube.com/lyricalgangster. Sadly, I can't change it.
That's why would you want to change that? That's awesome.
I'll never get hired.
No, you, dude. The second we become something, we're gonna hire you.
Okay.
Just we are something.
All right, sounds good.
We're just a little something special. All right. Next question.
People are gonna hire based on your YouTube channel. I don't think that's like
Ursinity, apparently you know nothing about networking. Of course they're gonna hire based on his YouTube channel. Okay?
Right.
God.
hope people don't hire based on mine.
Hopefully not. And we've been warning you about this for a long time. This question's from Lord Day. How does caster knowledge compare to pro player knowledge? And you guys do get reamed a lot. You guys do get reamed a lot. I will say that.
It's really tough. It's really, really tough. I can't really answer that because I'm not a pro player, but I'll give my best approximation of it, which is that when I am casting a game and looking at a 10-person, think for a moment about how crazy it is. Any individual Dota game that you walk into, you have 10 separate people all over the world who are plugging into something where they make movements simultaneously, each with their own ideas of what they want to do. And they're all working in concert to create this like beautiful picture of a game. There is no way that you're going to be able to get inside each and every one of those individual players' ideas. So you have to like try and make it work where you anticipate what they could be doing. If you see something that looks like a mistake, more often than not, it's like that it wasn't really a mistake. It was more so that somebody else countered what they did, which was a really cool idea. So caster knowledge versus pro player knowledge, they have more knowledge about what the game is, more knowledge about what their mindset is, more knowledge about the meta, the other teams, and we're just plugging along trying to do our very best. And honestly, a lot of the people that were pro players, they still end up getting it wrong too, because it's too hard to be like, if any caster was at the very top, they'd start playing again. There's no reason to be a player when he could play a caster and could be a player.
Cinderin?
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I hate when you guys catch shit because your job is to paint a narrative. You're supposed to entertain me. There's this game that's going on, and you're supposed to bring me a bite-sized piece of information so I can kind of understand what's going on. That's your job. And I noticed that the better casters are more neutral. They're not, he did this wrong, he fucked up. They're more, it looks like they didn't, meld the way that the team wanted to, and it didn't work out. And I feel like if you kind of roll yourself that way, I'm fine with it as the viewer. The pro is fine with it as watching it later. And you don't look like you are some arrogant dude that knows more than the pros. Which I have noticed with your casting, that you're very good about, if you notice a mistake, you're like, well, it seems like a mistake, but there could have been a number of reasons why this happened, and we don't know shit, basically. But moving on. And especially with your play-by-play, it's really good.
What do you think about, like, to turn this down to make another comparison, what do you think about caster knowledge versus pub player knowledge, assuming that the caster and the player and the pub player are at the same MMR, right? Just like by proximity, would you say that the caster knowledge is greater just because they are so invested in the pro scene and watching pros and the thinking through what pros are doing? Or does that kind of not applicable in a wider sense?
I think that's another really tough one too, because if I'm at the same level as somebody else who's a pub player, odds are they are going to be way better at the game than me, and I am probably going to be better at directing my team than them, because when I log on to play and actually get to play Dota, it's like a pretty big thing for me because I don't get that many opportunities because I'm casting all the time. So I have a lot of knowledge about how a pro player would play it. And what is the best move to go for as a team. But it's also really hard because you can't always get your teammates to go along with that, particularly if you've been sucking it up the whole time. Like if you've been feeding away a bunch of kills and I'm 1 in 22 on Oracle or whatever, nobody's going to listen to what I have to say. Like they have lost all credibility. Yeah. So more often than not, I think it's really tough because you need to be able you need to be able to lead, but you need to be able to lead from the start. So that way your team makes good decisions. And I would say that if you're a caster, you probably have more knowledge, but the pub players are probably better than you.
So execution versus knowledge, basically. Yeah. Go ahead, Ursi. Sorry.
Sidebar. do you pub as like, is your Steam account Lyrical or like Lyrical Dota or something, or do you pub as like some miscellaneous name? Because I know it's a mixed bag with like casters and pro players, etc.
I tend to take off the Lyrical Dota part and just put LYRIC, and that has like fooled people enough, because there have been times where I've been like, seen or whatever, called out, and I sort of like that, but sort of don't. It depends on the day, and also like if I'm in a crappy mood, I don't want to ruin my brand. I don't flame people generally, but sometimes if somebody's being like a real dick, I'll call them out about it. Yeah. So
I tell people to watch their fucking mouths. Yeah, watch your fucking mouth. I say that all the time, and I do it on stream. Who cares? People need to be told. Yeah. I mean, their mama didn't smack them in the mouth. Okay, this is our last write-in question. Then we have one more call-in question. Then we're going to wrap the show. This is a long question. Basically, I'm going to summarize, then I'll give the TLDR. This comes from a .peep, Hatakamara, or Hakuna Matata. Her MMR is 0.9k, so she is a little under 1,000. And she said before Dota 7 or 7.0, she kind of knew what to do as a 5, as a support. She knew to stack, she knew to, zone the offlaner and so on. And now in Dota 7, she feels that she has no idea what the fuck is going on. She feels like she needs to be everywhere all at once. Stacking is harder, rotating is harder. Her TLDR would be, what does it mean to be a support in Dota 7 relative to the patches before?
I mean, basically you just have to be more active around the map. I think that's like the real key. Whereas before, so in previous patches, you'd want to like carry a TP or whatever and be prepared like, oh, they're diving my mid. But now kind of the onus is on you to be making things happen or to be paying attention to things that are already happening and deciding, hey, should I go or should I not go? I know Mara, she actually gave me a good idea for a video that I'll be making about opportunity costs. But to reiterate on that topic, right, if you're a support, you have a lot of things you can be doing. So you have to weigh like, all right, should I be zoning right now or should I be ganking mid? Should I be doing X, Y, or Z? So I think in summation, basically supporting now, it's a lot more. There's a lot more decisions. Whereas before, it's like, oh, I'm playing Dazzle. I can't gank, so I'm just going to zone this offlaner real good, and then I'm going to pull whatever. But now it's like, okay, I'm playing Dazzle, but like I still, if something's going to happen, like logically, they're going to have more heroes roaming around. There's less of this passive, like, all right, let's farm for a bit. So there's just more stuff going on, right? So you just got to pay more attention now as a support. Not that you didn't have to pay a lot of attention before, of course, but I think it's a bit more of an active game overall. And supports are definitely in that early phase of the game the most active members of the team.
I agree.
Specifically 4, of course.
Lyrical, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I would say that I also feel in a lot of ways similar, that even because pubs are always going to be different from pro games. If there's one thing that I could say about that, it's that you can't always even like learn a ton just from watching pubs and like the position 5 players within that or within pro games, because your games are going to look different. So I think that picking up the bounty runes is a really, really good practice in general, unless somebody is telling you that they want to go and get it instead of you. I feel like in that MMR, you tend to get dual lanes a lot more. So just making sure that your positioning is such that you're not going to get picked off, and then going securing the bounty rune, telling your carry that like, I'm going to go get this one. So maybe it's a good practice. And you could focus on getting a stack on the small camp. And then at around the 130 mark, you pull that stack into your tower so that way you have been able to keep the lane. If it's too far up there where your carry is going to be like threatened, then you do the pull so that way it pushes under instead of having him like way out there and you far away. And then you go pick up the bounty rune. So you need to like stack it at the minute mark, the small camp, and then figure out where the lane is, see if you need to pull or not. If you do need to pull, go get that, do that, and then go get the bounty rune. Otherwise, just go get the bounty rune. And I think that just like having a set thing that maybe you do from the start to finish, particularly at that MMR, is going to help you miles more than anything else. Like later on, it's the whole idea where you learn the rules so that way you can break them later because you know when to break them.
Yeah. Pull-throughs are also now easier for Dire especially. Pulling through, like you don't have to stack as much as you used to, especially like the small camp, right? Because obviously you have less opportunities to do so. But the pull from the Dire small camp to the Dire hard camp is now easier. Like there's less of a Like, obviously, it was pretty easy before, but it was easy to mess up. Similarly, like, you can mess it up by just a few health on one of the creeps. So now it's a little easier. So, rely on that a little more. I think a lot of us kind of we relied a bit much on making stacks and then pulling the stacks and getting our creep waves killed. So that's a fun little thing that Chaos brought up to me, actually, that I had not even thought of.
For sure. Okay, so our last live caller is Mr. Fancy Pants. His MMR is 1107. Mr. Fancy Pants, what's your question?
So my question is mostly directed at Lyrical. It's regarding a Dota Buff article that was published on the 3rd of this month about prize payouts at tournaments.
Okay.
If you guys haven't read the article, the summation is that top teams getting paid a ton and low placing teams getting paid little to nothing makes it very difficult for players and organizations to consistently show up at events. And the worry in this article is that as the scene continues to grow and gain popularity in esports overall, that the huge income disparity in payouts and the difficulty in working with sponsoring organizations is going to make it very difficult to rely on this sport as an income in ways that other sports do, which will ultimately hurt the players and hurt the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it was a big article. It was one that had a lot of things that were brought up because it's a huge topic. And the first reaction that I had when I saw it was very much positive. I was like, yes, this is something that people should be focusing on more. This is something that, honestly, take a look at a team like IG Vitality. Prior to them going to the Boston Major, they had 50 or I don't remember how much it was. It was $26,000 total for their entire team that they had won. And they were one of the top teams in the world. This was a team that had performed so freaking well, and they didn't end up making it. But as I got to think about it more, and as I think people get to think about it more, it's important to relate this to how it's an indication where you can actually relate it to mainstream sports here. The top players should get paid more as a whole. And I think that what is probably better in the long run is to ensure that competition is healthy, where people want to make sure that they get that top spot. And that drives more people into the scene because they see, oh, there's this amazing competition that's going on. I want to watch it. So increasing the pie as a whole rather than splitting up the slices. Now, whether or not that's something that where we are right now in terms of that pie, and if it's equitably distributed, whether maybe we could throw a few $10,000 extra towards the tier 3 teams, maybe that's the case. But it's hard to say exactly. I think it's a really dangerous position, though, to start trying to have third parties decide who it is that gets what share. So I think maybe if there was a community push for it, it would be good. But as far as third parties trying to implement some type of structure where they say you shouldn't have 70% of the prize pool or whatever go to the top team, it gets dicey because you're messing with incentives. Then suddenly people don't have as much of an incentive to be the best team in the world anymore, and you want somebody to be the best team in the world.
Do you think this is kind of related to how Valve has, whether through design or by accident, made it so that there really are the premier tournaments, right? There's majors and TI, and the prize pools are very front loaded into those, and we have a ton of community investment in those, even though obviously the major prize pools don't change, but people still spend a ton of money on them, right? Yeah. And TI especially, we all spend to varying degrees of embarrassment a lot of money on those. So obviously those are for the tier 1 teams, but that leaves less of the community to invest themselves in potential third-party tournaments or what have you. And on top of that, I think the biggest thing I would bring up relevant to this is that Valve has been putting out less of the like tickets for third-party events and stuff. And when they were putting out tickets, they weren't like the funded tickets, right? Kind of like, what was it? The newest version of the Captain's Draft tournament, which was it had a good viewership and all that. They had to use the old ticket for like Captain's Draft season 1 or season 2 or what have you. So even if people wanted to increase that prize pool or do anything regarding that, or get cosmetics, which of course is one of the primary drivers of prize pool growth, they can't. Like, that's just not a thing. And a lot of this is not due to organizers not submitting tickets. It's more due to, Valve sitting on tickets or what have you. I believe I said what have you like 80 times in that sentence.
All right,
string of sentences.
Mr. Fancy Pants, what do you think after hearing from Lyrical and Ursi?
I certainly agree that third-party organizations should not be messing with how Valve wants to run their game and how players get paid, because like ultimately, the players play the game and Valve pays them, and that's a really sensible distribution of interest there. You get third-party people involved in money, and all of a sudden they start thinking they should get some. But I personally feel that the distribution of the prize pool is really strange. Like, I think that getting into the top 16 at the international should be enough for a team to be able to afford to live and do nothing but play Dota so they can try and show up next year. Like, that is enough of a, like, you are this good at Dota that I want to see you play more Dota. That I think it's kind of lame that the team that makes it through the qualifiers and makes it through the grinders and like shows up only to get knocked out of losers by like OG or something, although they didn't this year, should get another shot. And like, if that team gets $100,000 and then the top team gets 4.9 million instead of 5 million, like, I'm okay with that. I don't think that's like messed up.
The future is open wide.
I would generally agree, and I think that's something, again, where though it has to be off of the back of community support for that, as opposed to like anything else. And I would say also, you take a look at a tournament like WESG, first place $800,000, eighth place $10,000, and then all of the other 24 teams got nothing. So you have orders of magnitudes difference in terms of prize pool stuff there. So the numbers should, I think, optimally be tweaked. But also you want to make sure that it is something where you have a huge incentive to be the very best, because that is what has driven us to have such a big following. So that's where it is. If you start messing with incentives too much, then maybe people don't have as much of an incentive to be the very, very best. That's where I'll leave it at, I think, as far as.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's a good leaving spot. Hey, Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks so much.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much, Lyrical, once again, for coming on Defense of the Patience Tuesday Q&A. It's been a pleasure having you, sir. A lot of insight, a lot of fun, a lot of good disposition, and a lot of good tips. A lot of good tips. Ursi, no, I still don't want your missionary bullshit. Okay.
Well, we'll try next week. We'll
try next week. It's not happening. I'll go ahead and give the plugs.
You say that now.
We are Defense of the Patience. You can find us at defenseofthepatience.com. You can go to defenseofthepatience@gmail.com. You can go to twitch.tv/.ptv, where you are now, some of you, to watch next week's Tuesday Q&A or the Wednesday in-houses, or so on. Lots of things happen. I do stream my 3-point-something games on there as well. You can also go to YouTube.com/.ptv1, or you can go to YouTube.com/Lyrical Gangster and check out his most memorable game. You can find Lyrical at Lyrical Dota. You can find Ursinity somewhere, no idea where. I don't follow him, so I'm not sure. Where can people find you? Oh, at Ursinity.
At Ursinity.
Oh,
I
okay.
I actually, in the pre-show, I probably should have apologized to Lyrical, because I realized he followed me, and I was like, man, every once in a while I have those moments where I'm like, boy, I should post more about Dota and less about Korean pop music because my my Twitter is just a mess.
I followed him. You can too, people out there. Do it.
Yeah,
do it.
I don't know how long it'll last. Much respect. You don't have to be polite and just follow me. You can. I'll hold nothing against you.
You can also go to iTunes and leave a review. This helps us get seen. We've seen a ton of reviews lately, and it's free to do. Also, Patreon. There's a bunch of rewards on there. Patreon.com/Defense of the Patients. And Jay Gushi runs our Defense of the Patients. Great place to go. These are the plugs. I'm sorry people are kicking over chairs. This is how it goes. Guess what? This is going to be a show that comes out tomorrow, and I have to do this, or else producer Denny literally flogs me. So without any further ado, this was Roland for Ursinity and the happiest man alive, Lyrical, saying, "You've got questions, and we've got answers." God, I hate that closing.
That's the ending.